Well, another Monday is here and it's ready to do a little moving target AC diagnosis. This one right here was one of my favorite situations because there were so many peculiarities that would dodge around and give you trouble. And anyway, let me just go into this and see what I was telling you about. Terry called me one day to tell me his 2007 CRV had an inoperative AC. And this was an actual photo of that vehicle, and the AC went dark all of a sudden. So what do you do whenever somebody brings one to you, whenever you first get in there to check the AC? First thing you do, you got to think about the first thing you're going to do. First thing, and I created this chart for my students. Does the compressor engage? And this is on the premise that the AC conditioner air conditioner does not blow cold. Now this is not going to be one of the things that you are going to, this chart won't perfectly fit every situation, but it fits most of them, right? Does the compressor engage? Yes or no? Now I understand there are compressors that are always spinning, they are variable and all this. That's going to be a different chart. But this one here was one of these. If it engages, we want to know what the pressures are on the suction side and the discharge side. They need to be low on the suction side and high on the discharge side. And you know, if it's short cycling, it's probably low on refrigerant, but that would not be a non-engaging compressor. That would be if the compressor engages. If it doesn't engage, we need to know it's got at least 60 psi of pressure. There aren't any good charts anywhere to tell you what static pressure is supposed to be. Somebody asked that question whenever I was at Mobile Air Conditioning Society convention a few years back in an open forum, and the experts said, well, don't really know what to tell you about that because it's not written down anywhere. I typically look for about 100 psi on both sides. Now if it's got 60 or 70, it's going to engage, but it's going to short cycle on a fixed orifice, you know, the one with the low pressure recycling switch. Alright, moving on from there, is the suction line cold and the liquid line hot? That's important too. If your suction line is cold, your liquid line is hot, and your pressures look good, then you need to be looking for a blend door issue, right? Heater, blend door function. Okay, if the pressures are low on the suction side and high on the discharge side, you're going to look at compressor health and orifice / TXV. If your orifice, if your expansion valve is locked up, you know, got a problem in there, you're typically going to, even when you got a full charge, you'll have low pressures on both sides. And so that's a little rule of thumb there. Now, you ought to try making a chart like this for, you know, for students and all, because I built this one for them specifically and drew it myself. Does the compressor engage? Yeah, no, it doesn't engage. Does it have 60 psi? If it does the compressor clutch have power when you turn it on? Yes or no? If it does have power, does the feed wire show ground with the AC off? You know, I'll talk about that in a minute. You scan for AC requests, check fuses, relays, pressure switches. Scan tools, big part of the deal nowadays. Ever has been for 30 years. ID refrigerant charge and retest as compressor engage, and then you can follow these lines back. You can freeze this and capture this screen if you want to, because there's not a copyright on this because it belongs to me because I made it. Well, the compressor clutch wouldn't engage on Terry's CRV. It was just the engine running, compressor not engaging, even though we had the AC on. So we identified the charge, and it was 100% R134. We popped the gauges on it and at about 100 psi on both gauges. Well, that looks pretty good. So let's see what we need to do next here. So the preliminary conclusion was the compressor's failure to engage was not related to low charge pressure. I had seen that one guy one time back in, I guess it was 1979. He came to me when I was doing fleet maintenance. He was a local guy doing some construction, and he came and says, my air conditioner on my Chevy won't work. And I went out there and bypassed the low pressure cutout switch on it, you know, which you can change that without even, you just screw it out and put one on there because it's got a Schrader valve in it. Anyway, I just unplugged it, bypassed it, the compressor kicked in, the suction line got cold, it started cooling. And I said, plugged it back in. I said, you need one of these low pressure cutout switches. Go get you one from the parts house. He said, oh, that's cool. What I owe you? I said, $65. He goes, what? I said, yeah. He said, all you did is jump a wire. I said, yeah, but I knew which wire to jump, you know. I didn't charge him anything. I just turned him loose. But anyway, you can see how this thing works. You got this underhood fuse relay box, and this is going to operate the blower motor, this blower motor relay, and here's your compressor clutch relay, right? Okay, PCM is in this picture here, and then you got your junction relay connector. You know how we love those. And so here we go. You can see how this thing's wired up. You got that? All right. Now easy things before hard things. First thing you want to do is check, fuses and relays and all that. Well, there's 2 relays identified with snowflakes. See how they didn't put any words on here? One of them had the graphic for a fan and a snowflake, that one there. So our focus shifted to the one that just had the lone snowflake, and that's going to be the one we're looking at. Always love it when they do stuff like that. But they did have it drawn well where you can isolate the relay. See, this one here, it was that one. And it's kind of interesting that some of these relays, had been replaced and some of them hadn't, it looks like. But, that one there was the fan, and, that's going to be the radiator fan, that's going to be the coolant fan. The condenser fan, maybe, I guess. I don't know. That was condenser fan up there. I'm just a dum-dum when it comes to reading all this stuff. These, they don't even tell what they do. They just give you this book with the eye in there. That's their way of saying, look it up. Well, put my finger on the relay. It clicked when the AC turned on. I say, well, just because the relay clicks don't mean the relay's good. But what you can do is pull the relay out of there. Let's go ahead and pull the relay out. And I've talked about this before, but let's go over it again. We got the relay out of there, and we got these 4 terminals exposed here, right? Okay, so then we're going to hook our test light from power to the AC. This should light up. It wasn't lighting up. So I said, well, we got an open circuit from here to here. Since that ground is right there on the compressor, a lot of that, most of the time they are, on the newer ones, on the, for a long time. We got and if this right here is a good wire all the way down, as a rat chewed it or something, we got a bad compressor clutch coil. All right, so you can replace just the coil, but it's kind of a bad bet. A lot of times you spend the money on the coil, you put it on there, and then you wind up later on having a compressor on it. Let's just go ahead and put a compressor on there because they don't cost that much anyway. I was buying my compressors at that time from Ranshu. If you're a shop, you can buy RAANSHU. They got really good prices on AC components and stuff, and that's a specialty of theirs. They're the ones with the pink trucks and all that kind of stuff. You see at the Max trade show. And there was this girl up there that well, I'd see these girls dressed in like in these frou-frous and all that kind of stuff out there next to the. And I asked this guy that was with me. I said, I wonder where they find these girls. He goes, oh, they hire those from a modeling agency. And so I went and asked this one girl. I says, are you from a modeling agency? She said, no, I just work in the office. They just want me to show, put this on and show up. And it looked like something that a Vegas showgirl would wear. And I said, well, where did you get that outfit? Did you get it from, because they were from Reno, that's where they're based. And I said, did you get that from one of the casinos? She goes, heck no, they won't give us anything. We had this made in Florida. I thought that was really funny. But anyway, so we went ahead and said, I got a compressor clutch coil that we're going to have here. And so we're not going to replace just the coil. We're going to put a whole compressor on it. And so the diagnosis was done, the part was ordered, we ordered a compressor. He said he'd drive the vehicle till it came in. Okay, so I said, all right, so the compressor's on the way. All right, so he called while he's waiting for the compressor. He said, my starter won't work. He got turned the key and nothing happened. So he's in another town over there, and I know he's having it towed here, so he had somebody look at it. Shop right down the street checked it out. And he called back and said, the shop claimed that we hadn't plugged the starter relay in properly. Really? The starter relay is under here, and that's where the starter relay is on this particular CRV, and this is where the relay was that we were piddling with, is out here under the hood. We hadn't even looked in that inside fuse box for any reason whatsoever. That's downright silly. But soft skills means that even when you know good and doggone well that what the customer's saying is hooey, or if you feel like it is, but sometimes it's not, you actually take the high road and say, well, let's just see what it is, we'll check it out. And they know used to be a jerk, say, it's not our problem, And I've seen people do that. But one way or another, what's really bad is if somebody acts like a jerk and then it turns out it was their fault. Boy, that's eating some crow. Well, the new compressor in, pull the new compressor off, put them side by side on the bench. Students were there. I said, all right, we're going to measure the resistance of the coil on both of them. As I remember, it's like 10 ohms or something like that. I could be wrong, but anyway, we measured the coil on this compressor, and it measured good. We measured this when it was wide open. Okay, we tested them both. We even energized this one, and we click, energized that one, and it didn't do nothing. I said, there we are. We verified that we got clutch issues with that. So, here we are, good to go. Time to put the new compressor on there. Nuts, bolts, oil, and gas. So this compressor, I always check to make sure it comes with oil in it, because sometimes you'll buy one that won't. And we replaced the desiccant bag, colored that receiver dryer, put the system down for 15 minutes, pulled it down, checked the specs, make sure that it didn't leak back up. Juiced it up with over a pound of the coal stuff, which took just over a pound, from the light blue tank, fired up the CRV, and the AC clutch would not engage. What? I mean, this is ridiculous. So was it got a problem with the relay or what? So basically we found out the clutch would engage if we bypassed the relay, and we had done that before and we didn't get any, I didn't mention that earlier, but we had tried that before with the old compressor and it still wouldn't engage. The relay had everything it needed to operate. 2 powers and 2 grounds were showing at the relay socket with the AC turned on. So if you got 2 powers and you got 2 grounds, then you know, whenever the thing is supposed to be energized, you know that relay has to be what the problem is. Okay, now you can just swap one relay for another and all that kind of thing, but if you got the same part number or whatever. But we backtracked here. We had never checked the relay's integrity to begin with, because we found the clutch coil open. In a bench test, the clutch coil on both compressors, we verified our original diagnosis was correct. We didn't anticipate that both the relay and the clutch coil would have failed at the same time. Alright, so let's think it through. Why would the clutch coil relay be faulty at the same time as the AC compressor? Stranger things have happened, but these little potted relays, like this one here, they tend to die in strange and peculiar ways. There was a Nissan Altima that came in that we had. The lady says, when I turn on the fan won't work for 5 minutes, and then it'll start working. And it turned out on that one, and it didn't take very long to figure out that the relay was causing the trouble. It's a solid state potted relay. It's not like what you see in here with a coil and points and all that. And although I don't know what's in one of those potted relays, I've never taken it apart, and you can feel it click, but it's not the same sort of setup as one of these relays here. And so what we did was we pulled the rear window defrost relay and we plugged it in where the fan relay was, and we fixed that. Well, that guy went to work at a Nissan dealership after he graduated, and he said that he drew one of those. It was exactly the same problem, and in 10 minutes he knew he had it fixed and out the door, and they were really impressed with that. But anyway, I think that relay when we bought it was $36, but you can get one for $12-13 now at the parts house, one of these potted relays. A lot of them are universal. But you notice the pinout is the same on this one, same size and everything. They'll both plug in. Now that one there has got that little ear on it. One remote possibility was to wonder if the shop that checked the starter relay might have swapped the starter relay for the AC relay. Now that would have been a long shot. But what are the chances that they would pick that relay from the underhood box whenever they were checking to make sure the starter? They claim we didn't have the starter relay plugged in right. That don't even make any sense either. I mean, I'm still scratching my head about that doggone thing. Well, some mysteries just aren't worth solving, because you're never going to have enough data to put together what really happened. All we needed to do was to get this thing going. A replacement relay from Advanced Auto Parts closed the deal. Well, this is a funny little parts store cartoon. This guy comes in and said, I need 2 feet of 3/8 fuel line. And he says, your make and model. Some of these new guys in these parts houses, some of them are pretty darn sharp. Others, not so much. Up here at the local Advanced Auto Parts, I went in there and I said, I need to see about getting a Motorcraft oil filter for my Explorer. They said, that'll be $10.43 or whatever it was. I said, do you mind if I call the Ford place standing right here? See if we can get a price match thing. So I put it on speaker, called up there, talked to Brad, and I said, Brad, what do you get for an oil filter? Walk-in price for an oil filter for a, Explorer, man. So he looked it up and said $6.55. So they price matched it. I've had that happen 2 or 3 times up there. I like to use a Motorcraft filter on my Ford, you know. So anyway, not to say the other ones aren't good. I just like to use, you know, I like to put the Motorcraft spark plugs. I like to use the Motorcraft filter. I like to use everything Motorcraft if I can. Here's another one. I call that guy, this is a true story, and I don't really like talking to a parts guy that I don't know, if it's at the parts house I usually talk to. I need a lug nut for an '07 Toyota Corolla. He says, front or rear? You see a problem here? True story. And I said, you're scaring me, boy. I don't know what to think about this. He said, you know, now the lug stud might be different front or rear, but not the lug nut. They're going to be the same all the way around. Anyway, he got all huffy and said, just send one of the other ones up here, we'll match it up. And I did that, and it worked out. Well, that's all I got for you today. We've only been here 15 minutes. I hope you made it all the way to the end. And let me know if you did. Let me know what you think. Let me know if this helped or if it was interesting or if it was boring. Talk to you guys next time.